Imagine you meet someone for the first time. The conversation is going great, and it is perfectly pleasant. They say all the right things, smile at you at the right moments, and by every external measure, the interaction is completely fine. And yet, something in you is very uncomfortable. A quiet nudge that something about this person does not match what they are presenting. You cannot explain it with words, really, and you have no evidence for it, but the feeling is there, and you cannot ignore it. Or the opposite happens. You walk into a room where an argument just ended. Nobody tells you anything happened. The people inside are acting normally on the surface, and within seconds, you feel it. A tension in the air that has nothing to do with anything visible you see with your eyes. These experiences are the residue of a perceptual ability that every human being is born with, but most people have been systematically conditioned to ignore it since birth. In this video, we're going to break down what energy reading actually is, why most people have lost access to it, the science behind how it works, and the sequential practice that develops it from the inside out. Part 1. What energy reading actually is. Energy reading is the natural output of a nervous system that is present, calibrated, and not drowning in its own internal struggles. Every human being is constantly broadcasting information that goes far beyond the words they speak and the expressions they wear on their faces. The tension held in a person's body, the quality of their breathing, the micro-expressions that flash across their face in fractions of a second before the social mask reassembles itself, the way their energy either opens toward you or contracts away from you during a conversation. All of it is real data that your nervous system is designed to receive and process continuously. The science behind this is concrete. Research on mirror neurons shows that the human nervous system contains specialized cells that fire in direct response to the internal states of other people, essentially allowing one nervous system to resonate with another at a biological level before any conscious interpretation has taken place. The Heart Math Institute has produced extensive research showing that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet outside the body, and that this field changes measurably in response to emotional states, meaning that two people in close proximity are literally inside each other's electromagnetic fields and influencing each other's physiological states whether they are aware of it or not. The somatic nervous system, the part of your nervous system that governs the felt sense of the body, is continuously registering information about the environment and the people in it and communicating that information through physical sensations, a tightening in the chest, a relaxation in the shoulders, a sense of ease or contraction in the stomach, long before the thinking mind has processed anything consciously. This is what energy reading actually is in its essence. The conscious access to information your nervous system has already collected through channels that operate faster and deeper than conscious thought. The two people in the opening scenarios were not imagining anything. Their nervous systems had already processed real information and were communicating it through the channel most people have been taught their entire lives to dismiss as unreliable. The reason most people experience this only occasionally and unreliably, rather than consistently, comes down to three connected factors. The first is that modern life runs almost entirely through the thinking mind, and a mind that is constantly analyzing, planning, narrating, and problem-solving generates enough internal distractions to drown out the subtler signals the body is continuously trying to communicate. The second is that most people were taught from childhood to override their instinctive responses in favor of socially acceptable ones, to be polite when something felt wrong, to perform comfort when something felt threatening, to explain away the body's signals with rational justifications until the habit of dismissing them became completely automatic. The third is that a person whose own internal world is full of unresolved patterns, unprocessed emotions, and unconscious reactions cannot clearly distinguish between what they are genuinely perceiving in another person and what they are projecting from their own unresolved interior. Part 2. The difference between reading someone and projecting. Most people who believe they are reading someone else's energy are completely wrong. What they are doing instead most of the time is projecting, taking their own unresolved fears, their own unprocessed wounds, their own unconscious patterns, and placing them onto the person in front of them, then experiencing that projection as if it were information about the other person rather than a mirror of their own interior. A person who grew up around emotionally unpredictable people will walk into a room and feel threat radiating from someone who is simply being direct and confident, because their nervous system was calibrated long ago to read directness as the precursor to danger. A person carrying deep unresolved abandonment patterns will read distance or introversion in another person as rejection and coldness, when the other person is simply inside their own inner world, thinking about something else entirely. A person with a lot of unexamined anger will consistently perceive hostility in neutral situations because their own internal state is coloring everything arriving from outside before it even has a chance to be perceived clearly. This is the central problem with energy reading as most people practice it. The instrument they are using to perceive others is the same instrument that has never been cleaned, calibrated, or honestly examined. And a dirty instrument does not produce accurate readings. It produces a reflection of its own contamination. The only way to close the gap between genuine perception and projection is to know your own interior well enough to recognize in real time when what you are feeling is coming from the present moment and when it is coming from somewhere inside your own unresolved history. A person who has done serious and honest inner work has a clean enough internal instrument to actually perceive what is genuinely in front of them. A person who has not done that work will spend their entire life reading themselves while believing they are reading others. The practical test is simple. When you get a strong read on someone, before you act on it, ask yourself honestly whether what you are feeling could be coming from your own inner world. Is this person genuinely doing something that warrants this response? Or are they simply activating something inside you that was already there long before they arrived? That question, asked honestly and consistently, will sharpen your perception more than any other single practice available to you. Part 3. The sequential practice. The development of genuine energy reading happens in 3 stages, and each one builds directly on the one before it, which means skipping the first stage and jumping straight to trying to read others will always produce unreliable results. The first stage is developing stillness and presence. The nervous system cannot pick up subtle signals from the environment when it is generating enormous amounts of its own internal noise. A mind that is constantly planning, narrating, worrying, and analyzing is like trying to hear a quiet sound in a room where loud music is playing. The signal exists, but the noise drowns it out completely. Developing a consistent meditation or stillness practice, even 10 to 15 minutes of genuine silence daily, begins to quiet the internal chatter enough that the subtler information the nervous system is already collecting starts to become audible. The goal is not to empty the mind, but to develop enough internal quiet that you can feel the difference between your own baseline state and the shifts that occur when something in the environment changes. The second stage is developing honest self-awareness as the foundation for accurate perception. This means systematically mapping your own triggers, patterns, and emotional history well enough to recognize them when they activate. Journaling honestly about your reactions, tracking which types of people and situations consistently produce strong responses in you, asking yourself regularly whether your reads on people are being confirmed by reality over time or whether they are consistently colored by a particular emotional lens. All of this builds the self-knowledge that separates genuine perception from projection. This stage takes longer than the first, and it is less comfortable because it requires looking honestly at the distortions you bring to every interaction, rather than focusing on what other people are doing. The third stage is learning to trust the body's signals before the thinking mind interprets them. The body receives energetic information first. The thinking mind interprets it second. And the interpretation, as established in the previous part, is frequently distorted by projection and personal history. The practice here is to develop the habit of noticing the body's response to a person or situation before the thinking mind has had a chance to build a narrative around it. The tightening in the chest, the relaxation in the shoulders, the sense of expansion or contraction in the stomach. These sensations are data. They are arriving from your nervous system's direct contact with the electromagnetic and somatic information in the environment. Learning to register them clearly before the thinking mind overwrites them with its own story is what transforms energy reading from an occasional unreliable experience into a consistent and practical perceptual tool. The sequence matters. Stillness creates the conditions for perception. Self-awareness clears the distortions that contaminate it. And body awareness gives you direct access to the channel through which the information actually arrives. Each stage without the others is incomplete. Together, they produce something genuinely useful. Closing. To truly read another person's energy is one of the rarest and most profound forms of human perception available, because it requires something that most people are not willing to do: to become so genuinely honest about their own inner worlds and selves, so clear about their own patterns and distortions and unresolved history, that when they finally look at another human being, they are actually seeing that person, rather than a projection of themselves wearing that person's face. Most human interaction never reaches this level. People move through their entire lives surrounded by other people and genuinely seeing almost none of them. What they see instead are versions of others filtered through their own fears, their own needs, their own stories about how people are and how the world works. Genuine energy reading is what becomes possible when all of that falls away. When you are present enough, honest enough, and still enough to simply receive what is actually there in another human being, without immediately running it through the machinery of your own history. And when that happens, even briefly, even in a single conversation, something changes in the quality of human contact that is almost impossible to describe to someone who has not experienced it. The other person feels seen in a way that most people are never seen. And you feel connected to something real in another human being, rather than to the story you were telling yourself about them. That is what this practice is ultimately pointing at: the genuine ability to meet another person where they actually are.